Ryan of Antigonish. I'm Patrick Curry. I'm the president of the Antigonish Chamber of Commerce. The Antigonish Chamber of Commerce is an advocacy group, a membership group for Antigonish businesses and for business in Antigonish, not just Antigonish Town, Antigonish Town, County, this entire area we call the Highland part of Nova Scotia. Antigonish, of course, has a deeply symbiotic relationship with St. FX. We are entering into our next major function is our Business Awards Gala. And one of our major awards, the Ian Spencer Excellence in Business Award, is named after a longtime professor here, former chair of the business department before it was the Schwartz School of Business, in fact. And Ian Spencer had a long and deep relationship with business in Antigonish, and that was a partnership that continues to this day. We are receiving nominations for our 4 awards that we give out on that night, and the deadline for that is October the 4th. That is an open nomination. You do not have to be a chamber member or a business owner to make these nominations. If you know of a business or an individual that is worthy, we ask you to visit our website and make that nomination or contact our office directly. The 4 awards that we give out on that night, as I mentioned, first of all, the Ian Spencer Excellence in Business Award, the Emerging Business Award, the Young Entrepreneur Award, and the Outstanding Customer Service Award. So please be sure to forward any nomination that you see fit. Before we begin, I'd like to say that the Chamber is very happy to be co-hosting this event with St. FX Student Union. This event couldn't have come together without the hard work of a number of different people. Personally, I was really gung-ho to host this event. I think it's important that we provide you with the information you need to make a knowledgeable decision come election day. And so I was very, very excited to host this event, and then I took off for an extended long weekend vacation, and I left the details for everybody else to take care of. So a hearty thanks goes to Benjamin Gunn-George, Student Union President, Amy Brierly, Student Union Vice President, for all they've done to pull this all together. I'd like to thank Joe McDonald, the Director of Human Resources here at St. FX, and also Chamber Board Member Henry McKenzie, the Chamber's Executive Director, for their tireless efforts. Doug Brown, tonight's moderator, and Sean Ryan and Matt Cameron for doing all that they've done to make this event come together. I'd also like to acknowledge our media sponsors for tonight's event, 98.9 XFM, Nothing But Hits, 101.5 The Hawk and the Casket. Thanks for being here, folks. Muchly appreciated. Tonight's debate is being recorded by Acala TV, and it will be then uploaded so it can be viewed by those unable to attend. Acala is the Antigonish County Adult Learning Association, which is a local not-for-profit organization that does a lot of fantastic work in this community. I am very excited to be able to partner with them on this. And once we have a link to the debate, once it's been uploaded, it will be circulated by the Chamber, Acala, the Student Union, St. FX, all those sorts of things. And of course, I'd like to thank the 3 candidates for agreeing to be here tonight. I greatly look forward to this discussion. And finally, I'd like to thank all the people that I've forgotten to thank and are now probably very upset. So now I'd like to give way to Benjamin Gunn-George, who will introduce you all to our moderator this evening, and I thank you all for attending.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's so great to see so many people turn out tonight, and in particular to see all the students here. I believe that we all know that this election is so important for everyone here in Nova Scotia. And in particular, students can have a great impact in the decision of this election. So I encourage you to all you students here to please go out, spread the word, make others informed about this election and of its importance. Here on campus, we will be having elections happening on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of this month of the next month of October. So please get out there, spread the word to your fellow classmates and your fellow friends, and really stress the importance of this event. So So I'm really pleased to see so many people out here today, and I look forward to what is going to come from the event. So to begin with, I would like to just introduce the moderator for this evening, Professor Douglas Brown. Professor Douglas Brown is the chair of the Political Science Department here at St. Francis Xavier University. He is a tremendous professor and is in high esteem with many of his colleagues and students as well. So it is a great pleasure to introduce the moderator, Professor Douglas Brown.
It's my pleasure to moderate this event. We have, let me introduce the candidates, and this will be in the order in which they will speak initially. In the first part of our program, they're going to speak for 5 minutes each. So, and we drew straws just before they came in. So the first is Morris Noel Smith, the candidate and city member for the New Democrat. Second to speak will be Randy Delory, the candidate for the Nova Scotia Liberal Party. And third to speak will be Darren Thompson, the candidate for the Progressive Conservative Party. When these first 5 minutes is an opportunity for each of these candidates to provide an opening statement. This will be followed by a period in which we are proposing to the candidates some prepared questions from a variety of organizations in this district. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to speak to that, and we will vary the order of their speaking, and then there will be there is some opportunity for rebuttal. So once the rebuttal is finished among the 3 candidates, we'll move on and we'll see how many questions of the prepared questions we can get through. And then approximately an hour or so from now, we will open the floor to the audience members whom we prefer will speak at one microphone there, and it would be on a first come, first served basis. As your moderator, I will be quite strict. This is an opportunity to hear from the candidates and to pose questions to the candidates, not to entertain speeches from the audience. So the idea is to put a question and not etc. And that's worked well for us in debates in the past, and we will enforce that. And then we'll have an opportunity for the 3 candidates to have a last 2-minute closing statement at the end of the evening. So without any further from me, I'll ask Mo Smith to start. Thank you.
Doug. Good evening, everyone. My name is Morris Smith. I am the NDP candidate for this election. I first became the MLA for Antigonish in October 29, and I want to be the MLA for Antigonish again. I want to have the opportunity to continue on with the great progress that my party has achieved since being elected in June of 2009. Many of you may not know it, but the election in June of 2009 marked the first time ever that the NDP had been elected in Nova Scotia. Indeed, it was the first time ever that the NDP had been elected in the Maritime Provinces. And finally, it was the first time ever after my election and by-election in October of 2009 that the constituents of Antigonish sent a member from the NDP side to the legislature. When we formed government, we faced many challenging times when we were first elected. Globally, we were in the worst recession since the 20s, and we faced a staggering structural deficit left to us by the ousted Progressive Conservative Party. We had to get our financial house in order, and we achieved that goal. We knew that we could not have the resources to implement our plans while We had to get back to balance. And with the hard work and sacrifice of all Nova Scotians, we did it. Today, we have a balanced budget. What does that mean? It means that we now have the resources to improve many programs and make life better for today's families. Things like providing basic dental care for our children and insulin pumps for those children who need them, help for seniors, and improvements in education and health. Those are the concerns that I believe are important to Nova Scotians, and those are the issues that must be addressed in this election. Who can best provide these programs? Do we want to go back to the old ways where we saw services shrink while deficit and debt climbed? Or do we want to go forward with the positive plans and programs which the NDP has provided and will continue to provide? I believe that Nova Scotians want to see us go forward and to continue with making improvements. They know that they will get that with the NDP government. I want to continue to be part of that government.
And come back and wish they could come back and have the opportunity that I and my family have now. It's that recognition of the importance of family and community that I felt compelled to step forward and run in this election. I believe wholeheartedly that it's all political decisions, all of the big ones that we see in the party platforms, be it healthcare, education, the environment, transportation and road work, all of those big decisions that the Nova Scotia government is responsible for, they are all for naught if we do not make decisions and policy that are in the best interest of our families and our communities. Because it is with strong families that we build strong communities. It is with strong communities that we build a strong, vibrant Nova Scotia. And I believe that's what we all want. And that is what I will work for. If you, when you, vote for me on October 8th and send me to Halifax as your MLA. What we all need in Halifax, what we need in our member of the legislature, is a voice. We need a seat at the table in Halifax, and we need a voice in that seat. I've demonstrated over the past number of years, for those of you that follow the struggles for our community schools, Heatherton and Maryvale most recently, that I was a strong voice, an advocate for our children, for the students in these communities, who all they wanted was the opportunity to be educated, to feel connected to their home communities, their families. And I fought the local school board with many other parents and concerned community members. I was a strong voice. I'm running in this election because I want to continue to be a strong voice, not just for education, but for all of those other areas: economic development, job growth, local job growth, transportation. The number one thing that I'm hearing on the streets from the county are the horrible shape of our roads. I want to be a representative for your health care concerns and needs. I want to be that voice for you in Halifax. And I hope that you will all see fit on October 8th through this process that I will be the best candidate for that job. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Brown, the Yankees Chamber of Commerce, and the student union for putting on this debate. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here this evening. It's wonderful to see a nice crowd, to hear all of our ideas. I think it's a sign of a great community, and you have so many people come out and even like this evening to see what we all have to say for the betterment of our own community. I hope to show you a few of those ideas with a BC platform called Change That Works. Before I do that, I'll introduce myself a little bit. My name is Darren Thompson. I'm originally from Antigonish. I grew up in Cloverville, Antigonish. I have lived here my whole life, with the exception of going to school in Scotland, where I trained as a physiotherapist. I attended St. FX, where I got my X-ray, like most a lot of people in Antigonish did. I came back here after my graduation from school in Scotland, and was very fortunate to find a job here at Surrey Physiotherapy, where I'm still born. It's been a great experience going back here. My wife Michelle, my children Matthew, Rachel, Stephen, we really enjoy living in this community. We really want to expand on this community and make sure we offer all those experiences that we all experience as youth ourselves. With the exception of, both my wife and Michelle have been heavily involved in the community over the years. We both want to see Antigonish in the best way we can. We have both worked tirelessly in the community working towards that goal. And those of you who know both of us well, you actually argue that Michelle should be standing here, not me. I've developed several organizations within the community. I've involved the Highland Society as past president and chief of clients. I've been past president of the Antigonish Celtic Soccer Club, minor soccer coach, minor hockey coach, involved in the marriage course where we both actually teach the marriage course twice per year. And I was fortunate to be recognized as a volunteer leader for Antigonish Band in 2007. So my involvement in the community has been quite extensive, and 4 years ago, I decided to take that involvement to the next level. 4 years ago, I ran as a PC candidate in the by-election in 2009. I had a great experience. I loved the experience, and that's why you see me here today. I do feel that I have a lot to offer the community. I've shown that in previous exploits that I've done in the past. I really enjoy my work as a physiotherapist, and I keep hearing patients threatening not to vote for me because they like the services we provide as well. But I assure them we'll work something out. The election of 2009 saw the people of Nova Scotia vote for change. Unfortunately, the people of Nova Scotia did not get the change they're looking for that would make life easier for today's families. Instead, what we got was a 2% increase in the HST, despite promises made by our present premier that he would not raise taxes. We also have the distinction of driving the highest taxes in Canada as a result. That is a broken promise that takes an extra $1,800 from a family of 4 over a 4-year period. We also have the highest power rates in the country that have risen close to 30% since the NDP took power. We need to radically change the way we run this province, and Jamie Bailey's plan, Change That Works, is exactly what this province needs. Nova Scotia's legacy to its next generation should not be choked in debt. The NDP and Liberal platform offer more debt and no relief for the average family. The PC plan, Change That Works, has been cost-led fully and will get Nova Scotians back on track. Major commitments to the plan include raising power rates for the next 5 years, eliminating the small business tax, creating 20,000 jobs in communities like here in Antigonish, increasing the equity tax credit, ripping up the job-killing NDP labor laws, and cutting red tape. The main thing on everybody's mind is the high cost of the HST. People are telling me that the broken promise of raising the HST has made life more difficult for families in Antigonish. A PC government recognizes the importance of education for young people and will make new investment to results in legislate smaller class sizes up to grade 6. Clear report cards is also a priority so parents have the ability to judge the progress of their children. Everybody, students in the audience, everybody has seen the cost of tuition increase by 9% over the last 4 years. This is indirectly due to a funding cut to universities of around 10%. So what we have is we have reduced funding to higher learning that's going to form the leaders of tomorrow when we have students graduating with student debt. That just cannot continue. If you don't have enough money graduating from university, you have a debt load, you're forced into decisions that you would not normally make. So you have to take on jobs that move to another area, and people from Antigonish especially, young people that I've talked to, are forced to move because they can't afford to move. These are the main points of the PC plan. It's lowering taxes, freezing power rates, stop wasteful spending, and creating more jobs. I would like to have the chance to represent Antigonish in Halifax as your MLA, and I look forward to your support on October 8th. Thank you.
Here and 10 seats here. If there's anyone at the back who would like to seat, please don't be shy, come on forward. There's some, like I say, empty seats here and there's a few others on both sides. What we'll do we'll start with reverse order from when you were just speaking. So we'll start with Mr. Thompson and followed by Mr. Delory and we have the anchor there, Mr. Smith. providing to the candidates around you today, so they know what's coming. The Nova Scotia universities have been through an extended period of funding instability, including significant increases in university operating grants, followed by a 10% cut over 3 years. How would your party ensure our universities are funded responsibly so as to protect and enhance quality of education and affordability? Mr. Thompson.
The PC government feels that it's very important to invest in their youth, both at the smaller level from 0 to 5, the secondary level in high school, but also at the university level. We have seen in the last 4 years funding cuts over and over again to university levels. That has resulted in the lifting of the tuition freeze, resulting in 9% increase in tuition fees. All students can attest that it's going to increase your tuition from your first year to your fourth year by approximately $575. That is extra money that you are paying for the cuts that the government has placed in the student body for the last 4 years. A PC government will secure the maximum economic benefit to our province by providing a long-term stable funding through a 5-year memorandum of understanding with Nova Scotia's universities based on the principles high quality, affordable education, institutional fiscal responsibility, and population growth. So we want to invest in long-term education for the leaders of tomorrow, because not investing in education is not an option. We have to be able to invest in our leaders of tomorrow so we can stimulate the economy, create more jobs, and keep our young people home. Thank you.
As a professor here at St. FX, I've seen firsthand the challenges of the funding cuts to our institution. I think all of Kanish experienced that last year. So what will I and the Liberal government do to address these concerns? First and foremost, we see a major issue and an unfairness that takes place in Canada for post-secondary institution funding. And that's an issue that's not just an issue for the provincial government, but it relates to our federal funding transfers. The federal government provides some funding to provinces for post-secondary education, but it provides the funding to provinces based on the number of students born in the province. If you're not already aware of this, Nova Scotia has some of the most universities for the size of the province in population per capita, which means what we're doing is we're not just educating our Nova Scotia students, we're educating students coming from across Canada from coast to coast, but we only get funding transfers from the federal government for those students born in Nova Scotia. The Liberal government would stand up, work with our counterparts in Ottawa to reverse that, to change that and make a fair transfer agreement so that we would get funded for the students that we teach here in Nova Scotia. And that would provide the additional funding that we could put towards our institutions. In addition to that, we all see how the government has been providing tax-free incentives for large corporations. Don't you think it's time we provide the same opportunity to our students, that we invest in our students and our future? And so the Liberal government is committed to taking the interest off of your student loans, just like in many instances, governments in the past have taken the interest off the loans of large corporations. And finally, we're providing 300 new scholarships for graduate studies in the range of $10,000 to $15,000. Thank you.
We have 10 universities in Nova Scotia. The provincial government supports them all. And it is true that over a number of years, the amount of grants were significant and they were increasing on an annual basis, and that simply was not sustainable. The universities, like every other sector of our society, had to play their part in getting us back to balance. We have, for the universities, we have initiated a $25 million innovation fund to help them deal with their costs on the expense side. St. FX was the benefit of monies from that fund. In March of this year, I presented a check for $1.7 million to St. Francis Xavier University to allow them to upgrade their facilities, their buildings on campus, which will effectively allow them to have $400,000 a year in savings in heating costs. For students, we have increased the bursaries for students significantly, thus lowering their costs. We've capped student debt at $30,000. We've capped the tuition fees at 3%, which puts the average tuition for St. FX students slightly below the national average. We have introduced a student rebate tax whereby students who graduate from the university can, if they stay and work in Nova Scotia, can get tax rebate up to $15,000 over 5 years. These are efforts of making education more affordable. Ultimately, the universities themselves have the responsibility to manage their resources. The government provides them with funding, but we don't micromanage their expenditures. There are lots of opportunities for the universities to collaborate with each other to make cost savings collaboratively. Thank you.
Would any of the candidates wish to rebut or add anything to these remarks, Mr. Thompson?
Well, as everyone can see, over the last 4 years, the NDP government has a record to stand on. And despite some of these improvements that Mr. Smith has been talking about, the bottom line is that load is being transferred back to students. That is the bottom line. Tuition fees have increased by 9%. Funding to universities decreased by 10%. That's simple math. So that's not showing leadership and investing in the students of the future. The Liberals, by reducing the interest on student loans, doesn't address the key issue. The key issue is the mounting student debt and the problems that young people face in finding jobs in this area, as well as being able to stay here and get a good job after they're finished.
First, I'd like to respond to Mr. Thompson's suggestion that the Liberal plan doesn't address the fundamental problem. I think he missed the first half of my discussion, which was that we're going to increase the funding based on our work with the federal government to get our fair share of the federal transfer payments for education. And that's how we're going to bring the cost of tuition down in Nova Scotia. Secondly, I'd like to direct this one towards Mr. Smith. He talked an awful lot here about what NDP has done in the past 4 years. I believe the question was directed towards what are we going to do for the next 4 years?
Well, for that, the answer to that for me is very simple. You're going to get more of the same. We are going to continue to support students in the same way that we've done in the past with as much resources as we can allocate to that particular department. I'll remind Mr. Delory that it was under the Liberal government successive that the largest tuition increases happened in this province under the last Liberal government. And since the Tories have been in power, what have they done for the students? Thank you.
I think we'll have to cut it there. One more minute? All right, one more minute.
Mr. Smith, I don't know if you know how old I was when we had our last Liberal governments in this province, but I don't think bringing up those old records really accounts for what we're going to do in the future. And secondly, Mr. Smith, I think you can ask all the students here in the audience what they think if they want more of the same in the next 4 years.
Just a comment on the PC approach that was in the past. PC's had a 3-year memorandum of understanding with universities that had stable funding for 3 years. Students knew what they had to pay in student costs, and they froze tuition rates. So that's an important distinction to make.
All right, let's go on to the second question. This one is regarding youth employment. Nova Scotia faces a youth employment crisis which feeds out migration just as population aging is shrinking our youth cohort. This is a recipe for demographic, economic, social decline. What goals would your party set for improving youth economic outcomes? What concrete initiatives would you pursue to achieve these goals? And in this case, we'll start with Mr. Delory, and then to Mr. Thompson, and then to Mr. Smith.
Thank you. As I discussed in my opening statements, the issue about what are we going to do to address that? One of the first things is that a Liberal government is going to focus on sector development. We're going to identify those sectors of the economy where we have the opportunity and the resources here in Nova Scotia to build and be successful. That may include some work in our traditional industries, but it may also include work in developing and targeting innovation and investment in new industries and new areas that we can take a leadership role. We will refocus. I think we all understand and appreciate that our investment in large industry has not been paying off the last number of decades. So we need to refocus our energies and invest in small and medium-sized businesses where we will see the economic growth and benefits stay here in our local economies. It'll make our communities stronger, it'll make our province stronger. So we will focus on programs and incentives to help those small and medium-sized businesses grow. We have a commitment to the Graduate to Opportunity Program, which is a payroll incentive program that will provide payroll incentives to employers who, after 12 months of steady employment and training opportunities for young graduates, it's designed to be simple and flexible to encourage employers to hire new graduates who can then have opportunities here at home, and employers will be incentivized to provide those opportunities. And finally, for those with skilled trades who can't get their hours they need in the apprenticeship programs because there aren't enough opportunities here in the province, we're going to recognize hours accrued across Canada, so that those apprentices, those young students, can come back to Nova Scotia where the job opportunities exist, but only if they're certified. Thank you.
Everywhere we have traveled in the constituency doing our campaign door to door, there's always a story about a young family facing the choice of either living in Antigonish or moving away. A lot of people have children, friends, relatives that face the same problems, and it's something that's occurring on a daily basis. We can't have a growing economy and a shrinking working age population. High costs from the NDP government has resulted in losing 7,500 full-time jobs over the last 4 years, and that includes jobs in this community in Antigonish. Jamie Bailey and the PC Party plan to change that works is setting a goal to increase the population of Nova Scotia to 1 million people by 2025. Now, there's the basis of this plan is the obvious things like reducing taxes, freezing power rates, creating more jobs. Those are the broad strokes that make an economy grow. But there's more specific things in the plan that really affect business in Antigonish as we speak. The elimination of the small business tax of 3% to 0 would make us the most friendly small business tax community in Canada. This would create 20,000 jobs. And Antigonish, as we know, is made up of small business. We have anchor employers like the hospital and the university here. But you go around the community, there's many, many small businesses that are struggling with increased taxes, increased power rates, excessive red tape, and young people don't want to stay in this area. The apprenticeship program. We look to double the apprenticeship program from a ratio of 1 to 1 to 2 to 1. I would disagree with my Liberal counterpart, where I don't want hours to be recognized as much across Canada. I want them to be recognized here in Nova Scotia. Because people want to stay here in Nova Scotia, we increase that ratio to 2 to 1. People get the training they need, and they can stay here and work here and be part of our community. Thank you.
This is a very important issue for our party. We have introduced the Jobs Here program in Nova Scotia, and one of the main portions of that program is to get people ready for work. And we're starting that at not at the grade school level, but actually at preschool level. We're investing in today for preschool initiatives, via early childhood intervention, through enhancement in school programs such as Kids First, to capping class sizes, to the hub schools that we've introduced, building math time and doubling the math time for students. All of these initiatives are to prepare our students for the jobs of the future, and that's what we're trying to do. The community college, we increased 250 placements again to allow students to be better prepared. The market labor agreement monies, we've tailored those to the needs of special concerns. We've been investing in businesses, and you know, people say, well, that's a corporate giveaway. ask the people of Port Hawkesbury and indeed eastern counties here, when we invest money in Port Hawkesbury paper, that saved 300 jobs at the mill, 400 jobs in the forestry, and effectively 1,400 families live in this community, eastern Nova Scotia, from living from that mill. We're promoting things like that, and we're promoting and supporting things like the early shipyards. These are the projects that are going to bring our people home and allow them to stay here. Thank you.
Okay, device, people working too much or anything said, yeah.
Mr. Smith, I appreciate that you're taking credit for a fantastic idea, which is the community hub schools, because I believe that it was a group called the Nova Scotia Small Schools Initiative that brought that proposal to your Minister of Education a year before your government actually decided to act on it. The response that our group actually received at that time was, thank you for this unsolicited brief. So thank you, Mr. Smith, for recognizing that it is an excellent program, and it is, but it's just unfortunate that your government takes such a long time to respond to excellent ideas from the community. That would be also included with the class caps. When that was implemented last fall, that was after, first introduced in the spring, that you were not going to have caps, that you removed them, but it was only after significant public feedback that you introduced the caps after the school year started.
I'm quite prepared to suggest to anybody, if they want to come forward with a good idea, and it's a good idea, we're quite prepared to accept it. I don't have any difficulty in taking advice from people. If it's good advice, I'm quite prepared to receive it. I want to as well respond to Mr. Thompson's comment about the business tax. For the last 4 years, the NDP government has reduced the small business tax every year by 0.5%. It was 5%. We took it down to 4.5%, to 4%, to 3.5%, and now to 3%. We continue to do those kinds of things, recognizing the need to support small business. Thank you.
And Mr. Thompson,
Those decreases to small business taxes are great, but it can't get much lower than 0. That is the rate we're going to have, 0%. That will make us the lowest in Canada, and that's what we need to attract small business and keep small business in Anish. One other point too, it's good to see the communities, college spaces opening up, because we do need to train more people for the upcoming major projects that we have in this country, in this province. But it doesn't change the fact if we train these individuals with these skills and these trades, they cannot stay in Nova Scotia because the present 1-to-1 ratio is not sufficient. They still have to leave to work somewhere else.
I'd like to clarify for everybody in the audience who may not be tax experts. Let's be clear, the small business tax that we're talking about is a small business corporate tax rate. This is ignoring the many sole proprietorships and partnerships that are also small businesses that get taxed at their personal tax rate. So let's not say that we're addressing all small businesses. We are only addressing small corporate businesses. Following that up, Mr. Smith addressed that they were reducing the tax rate. That's true, but they also reduced the tax exemption rate, where that lower rate applies, from $400,000 to $350,000. And with respect to the 2-to-1 ratio, the Liberal government is just concerned that ratio does not apply to all programs and trades. We want to consult.
Thanks. I'll allow a very brief introduction from Mr. Smith and Mr. Thompson.
Well, I just want to say that, Mr. Thompson is talking about getting rid of this tax, getting rid of that tax, getting rid of the taxes generally, cutting all these taxes. Where does he think that the services that we have for our roads and our education and our hospital come from? They come from you people who pay taxes. If he cuts all these taxes, there are not going to be any services. Thank you.
The simple answer to that question is Jamie Beal and the PC Party has outlined all of the expenses and how we're going to achieve them, unlike the other two parties that are making promises and no way to keep them. We also have just a discrepancy between the small business tax. People I talk to in the small business community are really excited about this tax, and it applies to businesses under 500,000. So I might be mistaken, but the people I talk to in the small business community are actually looking forward to it.
Third question is about hospital funding
makes decisions based on the need for this community. It looks at what the community needs and makes a plan and goes forward with that plan. The support of, and all district health authorities do the same thing. None of them are the same in terms of what their wants are. In order to accommodate the wants of different health authorities, the program has been in place long-standing to have those communities fund those particular items that they want. And that brings me, I guess, to an important distinction here between what we're plan is for district health authorities and the other two parties. We are not going to interfere with the district health authorities. We're not going to cancel the district health authorities. The local initiative and the local employment that those health authorities provide are important to this community. And having someone in Halifax to decide what clinic you're going to have in Antigonish or what resources you're going to spend is not going to be something that this government will allow to happen. Thank you.
This program, which many of us may not be aware of unless you work in this field, it's been around, as Mr. Smith identified, for a long time. But for a long time, this program only applied to capital construction projects. So if we wanted back for those of us that remember when the hospital was completely renovated, built into a regional hospital, that would be the type of project that the community wanted and would have to co-pay. But what happened is in 2010, the Council of CEOs approved, that would be the Health Authority CEOs, approved the extension of this program to apply to all capital programs. And what's happened to our health funding since that took place in 2010 is that we started in 2009-2010 with a capital equipment budget of $26 million, and that's decreased to $18 million in 2013-2014. So what the government has done with this agreement, with this co-share for equipment, hospital equipment, is they've reduced the funding, but not so we don't get any more value for the 25% we're kicking in. They just offloaded those costs onto the community, so our health foundations have to raise more money. So it would be great, and it would be nice to say, yes, we can afford to increase our funding to our health authorities, but unfortunately the reality is our healthcare funding is strapped, and we're expecting significantly more funding cuts when the health accord with the federal government expires in 2015. So this time, I don't believe that it's going to be possible to address the financial implications here that have been introduced since 2010. But the concern that I've been hearing from healthcare officials in Gasha has been that these decisions from Halifax on the equipment that they were going to purchase were being made in Halifax, and they were being forced then to pay the 25%. It wasn't necessarily reflecting the values of the community in the equipment purchases they had to pay for.
Nova Scotians do pay taxes for their health care. Nova Scotians also expect to use those taxes wisely. What we are looking at is trying to find efficiencies and savings within the whole healthcare system. If you talk to anybody within the healthcare system, they will tell you how to make it better. We all want good frontline care. And good frontline care means purchasing equipment, resources, staffing, all of the things that give us a frontline. If you go to the hospital, that's the first thing you would see. So the PC plan, part of the change that works, is looking at reducing some of the administration bureaucracy within the province of Nova Scotia from 10 district health authorities to 3 to serve a population of just over 900,000. Now that direct savings of $60 million will be redirected back into frontline care. When we have savings such as this, that's when we can start to make purchases such as necessary medical equipment, both for the St. Martin's Regional Hospital, but also for hospitals around the province. With some centralized services with direct community input, we will be able to have better purchasing power and a better bang for our buck when it comes to using our tax dollars. Because that's what people want. They want better health care, they want wait times that are excessive, they want access to care when they need to, and that's what Nova Scotians deserve. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If it's going to be a $60 million saving for disrupting the entire province in terms of moving health decisions and control to Halifax, I'm going to say it's not worth it. Dr. John Ross, who's the eminent ER specialist, has looked at this issue, and he called it fudging with the edges. That we're not accomplishing anything by doing this. $60 million, the so-called cost and savings would effectively be 1 day of service, the cost of service in the province. So what we pay for doctors and nurses and tests and all the rest amounts to 1 day. That's what the saving would be if they dismantle these boards. For me, the risk and the chaos that's going to cause is not worth it.
I'd just like to bring the discussion back to the question that was raised. Mr. Smith, in his opening statement, commented that he didn't think the restructuring of the healthcare authorities, having somebody in Halifax make decisions was appropriate. Yet, as I mentioned in my statement, that the 75-25 split for equipment, that's exactly what the healthcare professionals in Gash have been telling me this program has been all about. That people in Halifax have been deciding what equipment we're going to purchase, and Gash was then having to spend their capital budget and fundraising on that type of decisions. The Liberal government is committed to consulting and trying to bring more input from the community so that the equipment that we're buying in the hospitals, that we're chipping in the 25%, meets the needs from the community.
Yeah, when I talk to residents of Antigonish, what they keep on telling us as politicians or potential politicians is that government wastes their money. At any time, or any place, or any system, or any department, there's a chance to save money, then government has the obligation and responsibility to explore it. To dismiss $60 million as not worth it is a slap in the face of frontline care workers that we work within that frontline care. That could buy numerous equipment like it's listed here, but at the same time, those are the struggles that are facing day-to-day frontline care, and if you talk to anybody in the hospital, they will tell you the same thing.
All right, we have time for two very short interventions. Mr. Smith.
Yes, thank you. You know, what I'm saying is that the chaos that's going to be caused by the dismantling of these boards is not going to be worth it. We're going to lose jobs in this community. Gash employs people. Some of those jobs are going to go. We can't afford to lose jobs in this community. I don't want to see that happen. And I don't want to see a decision being made in Halifax as to what foot clinic we might have in Antigonish or when we might hold it. Those kinds of things are not what we want in this community. We want our own control here.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle.
I guess two things. One is in the restructuring is to take the executives and the administratives to reinvest into the front line. So yeah, there may be some job losses, but so we can invest and have more jobs on the front line. The Liberal government's plan to restructure is to invest in our emergency rooms, not our boardrooms, in our hospital authorities.
All right,
And just a quick,
Thanks, we'll cut that off. The fourth question is about municipal government. And the order of responding here will be Mr. Thompson, followed by Mr. Smith, followed by Mr. DeWard. There has been discussion across the province in recent months about municipal taxation and boundaries, including renewed calls for a smaller number of municipalities. What is your position on the future of municipal government in Nova Scotia? So, Mr. Thompson.
The high cost of living in the last 4 years with the highest taxes and power rates across Canada has been hard on rural Nova Scotia in particular. Antigonish, compared to most communities across Nova Scotia, have weathered the pattern of migration with our population relatively stable in the last census. Locally, we have had the town of Antigonish and the municipality of Antigonish showing residents that shared services and cooperation in infrastructure projects has been on the rise. Although there will continue to be ongoing disagreements from time to time, as we are aware, there are many success stories in the last number of years, including the Antigonish Arena, R.K. McDonald Nursing Home, and the People's Place Library. Both units have cooperated successfully with other infrastructure projects, including the Central Sports Field and several community organizations. People that I speak to with these recent cooperations see that as positive and want to see them continue for the betterment of the entire Antigonish community. If we can see more cooperation between units within the community itself, that's what people want to see. If I'm from the county, I go to town, somebody's from the town, they work in the county, we're one community. And the more the shared services that people see, the more better use of our tax dollars, and that's what people want. Thank you.
I want it to be very clear, the NDP government will not force any municipalities to join together. It makes sense if municipalities want to join together, that of course we would support that. But for us to go out and direct or enforce that in any way is not something that we will do. In order to have a successful union, if that's what the people want, there has to be the will to do it. And if it's forced on them, it just won't be successful. So yes, we would be encouraging people, makes sense to share when they can. But if they don't want to do it, forcing it to happen is not the right way to go, and we certainly would not do that. Thank you.
So without a doubt, that municipal governments are important. In fact, they're essential partners when it comes to serving the people of Nova Scotia. We've seen time and time again in the past, and sometimes getting worse, where those relationships get a bit heated, and it's been strained, the relationships between the provincial and municipal government units. A Liberal government is going to make it a priority to repair the relationships with our municipalities. And the way we do that is by reaching out to them and working with them to identify the opportunities and the challenges they have, and working with them to find out what types of solutions to those problems and how we can work together to capitalize on those opportunities. With respect to municipal reduction of the number of municipal units, let's call it what it is, amalgamation, we would have to work with the municipalities. As Mr. Smith suggested, it would have to be something that stems from the communities. I've seen firsthand, when I was a student, I worked for 3 employers doing the same job at the same location. They were the town of Antigonish, the county of Antigonish, and St. X. And I was working in the aquatics program. So for an example of the types of services that could very easily be restructured and strive for savings and increased opportunities for the community members would be something like that in recreation. It doesn't have to be totally disruptive, and there would be other opportunities like that that we could look towards restructuring, becoming more efficient in our municipal management. And if the municipalities are ready, the Liberal government would be ready and willing to work with them to identify and implement such strategies.
Mr. Thompson.
When it comes to forcing unions and reducing municipalities and things of that nature, most residents in Antigonish don't really care what you call the organization or how it looks, or if there's one or two. What they want to see is they want to see true cooperation, shared services, and using all of our tax dollars wisely, both at the municipal level and the provincial level. So what we have to do is we have to work towards what we've been doing the last number of years, to keep working towards that goal. If it takes us in a certain direction, but that is an option down the road, that's great. But we have to explore all these options, and it's been a good start so far in the last number of years.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Thompson, I believe when you say that the residents of Antigonish don't care, you may have forgotten the plebiscite that took place just a few short years ago, where the majority of residents did decide that they did care and did want to keep their municipal units separate.
Mr. Thompson.
I think that's grossly overstating the statement. When people talk to me about what they want in the community, they want services. They don't think of themselves as community town versus county, county versus town. They think of it as shared service. We all are one community, and people do care where they live. There's vibrant communities in the county, there's vibrant communities in the town, but we all share this one community called Antigonish.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. This question is about roads. And we're going to go in. Mr. Smith, you get the first word. Mr. Smith, Mr. Thompson, and then Mr. Delory. How will you support the added construction and maintenance of all provincial roads in the area, not just highways? And how does active transportation fit into your plan?
Thank you for the question. Of course, as you know, as Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, roads are my authority. We have had great success here in Nova Scotia since we came to government with what I'm sure all of you know about. It's our 5-year plan. The 5-year plan is a plan that was developed so that we could tell people in advance over the next 5 years what capital projects were going to be done in their communities. So people knew in advance what, when, and where they were getting road work done. That plan has been a tremendous success. It's been a success not only in terms of letting people know what they were going to get, but also a financial success. It was a success because the contractors then knew what work was going to be available. They could tailor their equipment ordering and their manpower lining that up in a way that enabled them to have cost savings. It also allowed early tendering, which meant that the bids were coming in earlier and more bids were coming in, and money was being saved because of the competition with the increased bids. That meant paying more for less. We intend and I should say that the rural roads in Nova Scotia, that was the major highways. The rural roads in Nova Scotia have been neglected for years and years and years, and you all know it. I remember well, and even in this campaign, the Liberal leader has said roads are not a priority for his government. In the Liberal time when they were in power, they said their policy was not to pave rural roads. We are going to introduce in Nova Scotia a 5-year plan to look at rural roads so that, again, people will know in advance what they're going to get, where it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen. And that can't do anything but improve the system that we have. We're taking politics out of paving, and we're improving the cost. Thank you.
Traditionally, there's never been a more debated topic in Nova Scotia elections than that of our roads. In my travels around the community, the condition of our roads has been a constant concern. People, however, are realistic. They do realize you cannot pave every single road in the community. They are telling me that at least the very least we can do is proper road maintenance. And everybody is saying the same thing. We do not have proper road maintenance. People are realistic, like I said, they don't need to have the road paved, although they would prefer the road paved. What they want at the very least is the maintenance that they deserve: ditching, proper grading, limbing trees, just make it passable. That's what they have been telling me. Residents become very frustrated. They hear promises, priorities, things of that nature, and it just doesn't happen. They have legitimate concerns about their safety. In my travels around the Antigonish community, I've come across a couple of examples where residents have been so frustrated with the lack of action despite repeated calls to transportation that they're at their wits' end. Now, when we talk about the wise use of money, we can't help but get into the Nova Scotia government's delving into the paving industry. I've written a letter to the editor of the local paper here in the Casket, displaying my concern about that. We have professionals, some of whom are based in Antigonish, that are province-wide companies. They are experts at the job. The government should not be in paving and chip sealing. They've also proved that they're not meeting their targets, their own targets, by the way, and they're paving and chip sealing half their budgeted roads for twice as much money. The experts in the field should be left to do what they do best, and that's the road plan.
Well, I guess the first thing is, I agree, knocking on doors number one issue that I've been hearing about is the horrendous condition of our rural road structures. To say these people knew that when they moved there, they should move to the city or the town, ignores the fact that these people grew up in many cases in these communities and on those roads. There are many generations in those communities. So for individuals in Halifax to suggest that these people are any less deserving of road maintenance is a disservice and disrespectful to the great people of Antigonish County. I can't say that we have in the Liberal government any more money to contribute to road work and maintenance in rural parts of the province. But what I can tell you is that safety has got to come first. I went up the farm road, and there's a section of that farm road that's washed out, so you're down to one lane of traffic. There are children that have to walk along that section of road because the bus doesn't go up there any longer because of cuts to our education system. So we need to, when we're making decisions about how we spend our transportation infrastructure renewal funding on road work and maintenance, we need to prioritize the maintenance of our roads for the safety of our people. And it doesn't matter if there are 5 people on that road or 500 people on that road. Safety has got to be our first priority, because how can you put a dollar figure on one accident that takes the life or harms one of our citizens? So that's how we make our decisions when we prioritize the use of our funds. With respect to the second part of this question about active transportation, the Liberal government is committed to working with our municipal and community partners to develop opportunities in this area. And one of the things we have done is introduce legislation to increase the amount of space on bicycle lanes.
Thank you. The roads in Nova Scotia are in such a state today because previous governments didn't do what needed to be done. We inherited this mess and we're fixing it. My friend Mr. Thompson's government wants to, or the party wants to cut taxes. He wants to cut the gasoline tax, or the tax on the tax as he calls it. Where does he think the money comes to pay for roads? Every penny that you pay in gasoline tax goes to roads. Every net dollar from the Department of the Registry of Motor Vehicles goes to roads. Since we came to power in 2009, we've spent $1.1 billion on road repairs in Nova Scotia and roadworks. Look at the bypass out here. We're spending money on roads. We're doing what we can. But it was a big mess that we were left with. Thank you.
People, I think, are tired of hearing what mess is left behind 4 years later. It's a responsibility of the city government to make sure that they make good use of the funds that they have and have a record to stand on. With roads being a major issue in our community, I did go to see the 5-year plan. And what I did see was no paving in Antigonish County for this year. And as Minister of Transportation, I was hoping Mr. Smith could explain that to us, because if we can't get the Minister of Transportation to pave our roads in Antigonish County for this year, I don't know who can.
That was directed to Mr. Smith, so let me answer first if you'd like.
You know, being Minister of Transportation doesn't mean that I have my hand in the till and that I can take as much money as I want and put it where I want. Roads are prioritized according to their need to be done and in geographic areas. We don't take all the money and put it in one area. Antigonish is doing quite well in terms of road works. Ask the people who live on Beach Hill Road. Ask the people who live on Back Road, Riley Brook. Ask the people who are asking for and getting services in terms of the road works that we are doing. It's not, again, you can't totally do something in 4 years when nothing was done and the roads were in that kind of condition because they were left without work on them. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ready? Mr. Doran, okay. That ends our section. We had other questions over we are committed to following this off for 45 minutes. And so now, if people want to think about what the questions are, and the microphone microphone here. This is the only microphone. We could make this microphone available, as you know. It's on. So there actually are two. Why don't you, you could just move that over wherever you can. So we'll have two microphones. Now, I would like people, if possible, to introduce themselves and make the remarks in the form of a question, please. You may direct it to one or to all of the candidates. And the candidates will have the same principle of a 2-minute response. And if necessary, we can have rebuttals. But I think that we also want to get in and see as many questions as there seems to be demand. So there's a gentleman standing there.
Yeah, my name is Ted Wright. I'd like to ask all the candidates this question. The winning candidate will be opening a constituency office or reopening. And I was wondering if you could each tell me what skills and experiences you can draw upon to help the hundreds of people who will be dropping by your constituency office with problems they want solved. Thank you.
Mr. Smith first.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I have had now 4 years as the MLA here in Antigonish. I've had an office on Main Street. I don't think it would be more visible than it is. I keep regular office hours, 8:30 to 4:30 every day. I have a lot of walk-in people. Anybody who wants to come to see me can see me. And if they need to, they can make an appointment if I'm out of town when I'm not there. My experience as a legal aid lawyer for nearly 34 years in this community, I'm used to people coming to me with their problems. I'm used to looking at issues that need work on them in terms of resolving those problems. I bring that experience as well to being able to conduct the affairs of a constituency office. I've done it. I've done it in another life in terms of trying to help people resolve their problems, and I'm quite willing to go forward and do it and continue on with that. Thank you.
Who wants to go next? Mr. DeLore?
I have a lot of experience. Some people may be looking at me and question the legitimacy of that, but I've worked in industry. I have my master's degree and I'm a PhD candidate in the area of business management. So I have the education and the background. I have industry experience in the IT sector. I've consulted. I've worked in the States from Moncton. So I do have lots of business experience to address a lot of the economic issues. The research side of things, working here at the university, I can research, listen to the problems, and research to find the solutions. I've been on the other side. I've been one of those many constituents that have knocked on Mr. Smith's door looking for help, in particular with the Community Schools Initiative. I've seen firsthand and I've experienced firsthand the roadblocks that have been put up by bureaucrats and administrators and elected officials. So I know the frustration, and I can empathize, and I can deal with those. I can work with the constituents. I can work with the bureaucrats. I can work with the administrators. I can work with the other elected officials so that we can take down the roadblocks, or at least find a way around them if we can't knock them down, so that we can work together to find the solutions. Mr. Wright, I don't know where you went here, but Mr. Wright, I can guarantee you that I will work hard on any of those solutions to find the right solutions for any of the problems that come forward, because that's what I'm there for. I can't guarantee that I will solve all of those problems, but my experience comes from putting in the work. Mr. Smith noted that an 8:30 start time. Those of you around town see me out there at 7:30 in the morning. I've seen me at 8:15 classes quite frequently, so my work day starts a lot earlier than that. So I think I have the time to commit to the constituents of Antigonish.
As a lifelong resident of Antigonish, I feel I know the community very well. I grew up in a family where we had a small business. There was lots of challenges there. I went to the university, I went to St. Max, went to Scotland. So it was a great experience. Came back and worked in a very busy physiotherapy practice. So I'm used to being quite busy both in my work life and on the recreational volunteer side. Some would argue, my family would probably argue just as much, that my volunteer side outweighs my professional side, but that just goes along with living in a nation, wanting to be involved in the community. I feel that I've taken on some leadership roles within the community, been heavily involved in the Highland Society, heavily involved with minor sports in the community, and heavily involved with marriage course and things of that nature. And I think that this job here, to me, is a natural extension of the things I've been doing. And it's something I'm very excited about because I feel like I have a passion for anti-conditions almost unparalleled. And I feel that I have something to offer, and I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think that. So I wish that I can get that across and get the support that I need so I can make it happen with your vote October 8th.
Thank you. I just want to respond to Mr. Delory's comment about coming to my office, and he just opposed that with running into difficulty with bureaucrats. My recollection of his visit to my office was that he came there looking for help for me to get him connected with the Minister of Education. I did that. He had his meeting with the Minister of Education. There was a new Minister of Education. He came back to me and he said, "Can you get me a meeting with that minister?" I did that. I don't know when he's talking about running into bureaucrats, what he means by that, but I want to assure people that when you come to my office, I do what I can for you, and as I did for him. Thank you.
Actually, I don't think I asked for the meetings with the Minister of Education. I think the Minister of Education reached out and met with me. What I was looking for when I went to your office, Mr. Smith, was I was looking for a voice in Halifax to give me some action on these initiatives. The responses when you took things to the Minister on our behalf was no different than the responses that we got from the Minister directly. So I saw no value in the responses that you were able to get from your colleagues. And I don't know if that's because you didn't make the case strong enough to your colleagues, or just because your colleagues didn't listen to you up there in Halifax.
And then we'll move on, okay?
Yes, I think when you talk about making the case, that's where it went off the rails. You didn't make your case, Mr. Delory. You had your visits with the ministers, and you weren't successful. Thank you.
The next question.
My name is Anne-Marie Long, and I'm from the community of Tracadie. And my question for each of the three candidates is with respect to jobs. And we know that Mr. Dexter has been working with the other Atlantic provinces to ensure trade certification standards are made uniform across our 4 Atlantic provinces. What I want to know is 2 things: how each party and when they are going to ensure that certification for people who come to Nova Scotia with foreign degrees is done, and when will our apprentices who do have to go to other provinces to gain work experiences, because there is not enough jobs here for them to get that experience, when are they going to pass some kind of legislation that allows those hours to be counted towards their certification in Nova Scotia?
Immigration strategy, the BC government plans to attract more people, not just from outside of our own country, but outside of our own province as well, to try to make things easier for that. Because what we have now, we all know, we all come from families of 6, 7, 8 children with our parents, but now we see in families of 2 to 3 people. So we have to be able to make sure we keep the young people here that are already here, but also we have to attract new people. And then the way to attract new people is to try to make life more affordable here. The high cost of living in Nova Scotia over the last 4 years is driving people away. 7,500 jobs lost in the last 4 years. We're actually going backwards. We have to reduce freeze power rates, reduce taxes, stop wasteful spending, and that'll attract more people so there's good jobs in the area. The second part of that question?
Apprenticeship.
What was the second part?
Apprenticeship.
apprenticeship, yeah. So the, thank you. As far as the apprenticeship is concerned, one of the things that the PC government is going to strive for, as I stated, they're going to increase the ratio from 1:1 to 2:1. That will enable 3,000 apprentices to be able to stay here and get their training here. The next step, obviously, to recognize all of these apprenticeships and the journeyman papers from province to province, but that's something I can't promise personally, but that is the next logical step. The first part is to make sure that people coming out of community college have a place to work here, and they can stay here, but hopefully when they finish their training, they can actually work here and raise their family here. Thank you.
Mr. Smith's next, yeah.
Thank you. On the certification for foreign professionals coming to Nova Scotia, obviously that's a concern. We want people to come. We want them to settle in. We want them to be able to do the jobs that they're trained to do. In our society, in Nova Scotia, we have professional governing bodies. We have for the lawyers, for the doctors, for the engineers, all of these people, and they have their own set of rules and requirements to meet. They have to be satisfied that those people that are coming in, knocking on their door and saying, I want to be a member of your organization, are properly accredited, and that's part of the stumbling block. We need to make sure that that's sorted out. But it isn't a question of just the government saying, well, you're going to do this. These people have to be satisfied to protect the public, that the people coming are properly papered, I guess, if that's the way to put it. On the apprenticeship issue, we all know that this is a big problem, and it is a problem that has been coming to the fore, and I'll say as recently as the last 6 months. It's starting to be worked on. The issue of the hour accreditation for the hours outside the province is one of those things. The ratio of apprentice to the skilled worker is also a consideration. These things are being looked at just now. So it's something that is being determined as very quickly. Really, it's on the front burner. Thank you.
I think to the first part of that question, Ms. Long, there's something that Mr. Smith and I can agree on, is the fact that the decision-making process for recognizing those certifications and those particularly professional programs is something that has to be done in consultation with the appropriate certifying bodies. So that's not something that any public government official in Nova Scotia government could commit to answer the how and when those will take place. The only thing that I can highlight, and it's a common theme you may have seen for all of the issues, is that the Liberal government is committed to working with. It's always been about working with. So we'll be working with the people that are coming to Nova Scotia from away with credentials, to work with them to identify their challenges and struggles with making it through the certification process, and working with the governing certifying bodies here in the province to find out where we can come up with a proper solution that addresses the safety and the needs as well as the economic viability for employment for those individuals. With respect to the apprenticeship program, it's very clearly laid out that this government is committed to passing legislation pertaining to recognizing hours achieved outside of the province to earn their certifications, their tickets here in Nova Scotia. We're also committed to reviewing and working with the appropriate trades to identify the appropriate ratios. We recognize that different trades may have different ratios, where the one-to-one ratio may be very appropriate, although not ideal in terms of the limit on the number of apprenticeships we have. It may be for safety reasons that we have to maintain that ratio. There may be other areas, other trades where we can increase that ratio so we can have more apprenticeships here in the province. What I cannot answer, Ms. Long, is when. I don't make the schedule for the legislature for when legislation would be tabled and passed, so unfortunately I can't answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further follow-ups, brief follow-ups from anyone? No. Okay, well, let's go on to the next question then.
This question is for all three parties, and it's only a short question, but I think it's very important. What do you and your party plan to do about minimum wage?
So we'll start with Mr. Smith, and then Mr. Delory, and then Mr. Thompson.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I'm very proud to be part of a government that looked at the minimum wage when we first came to power and made the necessary changes to increase the minimum wage. The minimum wage today stands at $10.30 an hour. That's the second highest minimum wage in the country. When we came to power, we were way down on that. We've also indexed the minimum wage so that it's tied now to the Consumer Price Index, so that every April 1st, following the Consumer Price Index from January the 1st of that year, the hourly rate for minimum wage will be adjusted. In this year, the increase, they're not substantial increases, but if you're living on a minimum wage, any increase is important. It's gone up this year 15 cents on April the 1st. It was $10.15 at that time. It's now $10.30. Previous to that, it was $10. The year before, it went up 15 cents. What we did do when we came to power was we initially made some large increases in the minimum wage at 6-month intervals, so that we brought it up to actually what now is considered, it's hardly a living wage, but it certainly brings a person just above the poverty line. And I'm very proud of a government who has done that. We were at a forum last evening, some of you might have been there, where poverty was a real concern for everybody in the room. One of the things we've done to help alleviate poverty for Nova Scotians as an NDP government, and again, I want to stress how proud I am of this, is that we have increased the minimum wage. Thank you.
Everybody agrees that having an appropriate minimum wage is only the right thing to do. The key issue here, however, is not whether the minimum wage is $10.15 or $10.30, whether it's $10.30 or $10.50 for that matter. The key issue here is the cost of living. So if you are two people working at minimum wage, whether it's $1 more than that, what is the appropriate number? I don't know. But if that dollar amount is not sufficient to pay your bills, it doesn't matter if it's $1 more, $2 more, there has to be some kind of happy medium there as far as what's an appropriate pay scale, for sure. But we got to attack the main problems in our society as we see it. Over the last 4 years, we've seen increases in taxes, extra 2% on everything we buy. Power rates, you go around in the community, the major obstacle for getting ahead is the high cost of power. And it is increased almost 30% over the last 4 years. With our plan to freeze power rates for the next 5 years, at least gives people an option to have money, disposable income for other things. Of course, the minimum wage has to continue to increase, but we got to look at where that money goes and what our buying power is and things that we afford on a daily basis. That's the main issue here, and that's what we plan to do as a PC government.
As my colleagues noted, I think all three parties agree that the minimum wage and poverty, we all participated in the discussions last night, is a challenge, and it's a challenge affected perhaps and felt in and around our own communities, and I think even some people around may not realize just how much and how many people are affected by these issues of poverty in and around Antigonish. And so I'd encourage you all to take some time to become informed with those various organizations like the Antigonish Poverty Reduction Coalition. With respect to specifically minimum wage, it's a difficult thing, as noted earlier. What is the right amount? What is a fair wage? It should be what we're discussing here. Not what is the minimum wage, but what is a fair wage? What is the appropriate wage for our citizens? And I think that's something that we need to continue as a government, any government of any color, stripe, or label needs to continue to commit to be a socially just province, socially just in our communities. And I think that's what we are striving for as a people. And the Liberal Party is certainly committed to pursuing those types of endeavors as well.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Thompson's position with reference to his solution again is to, of course, cut every tax that you have, and I would ask him what services is he going to cut to match that. But in terms of the increase in the HST, when that happened, as we all know, that was done following a consultation that was province-wide, the largest public consultation that a finance minister had ever made, and it was with the concurrence of people at those across the province. They said, look, we have to get back to balance. They were willing to agree that the best way of doing it, or the fairest way of doing it, was the hike in the HST. And I want to just say that we protected low-income people from that hike by introducing at the same time the affordable living tax credit, which returns every year to those people $255 to offset those increases in the HST. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Thompson briefly, and Mr. Delory.
Just to clear that up, how we're going to do things and how we're going to save that money is fully costed out in the PC plan. So anybody who wants to see that, it's all costed out right down to the dollar amount. So if you wanted to see that, that's there, and I'd like Mr. Smith to have a look at it as well. When it comes down to the HST, everybody going into the last election knew exactly what was going to happen. We had Mr. Dexter, the Premier of Nova Scotia at this time, go on live TV and said he's not going to raise taxes. And then he went around and said, or it was Mr. Steele, went around in the consultation process, and I think everybody knows the die was already cast, and we got the broken promise that cost everyone in Nova Scotia $1,800 over 4 years.
Mr. Delory. Mr. Delory.
Last year, that department provided $131 million to various businesses and nonprofits. In Antigonish alone, the amount that could be cut is upwards of $1.3 million from organizations such as the Antigonish Abattoir, Antigonish Guysborough Early Childhood Intervention Program, the Antigonish RDA, Antigonish Women's Resource Center and Sexual Assault Services Association, Destination Eastern and Northumberland Shores, Nova Scotia, many other organizations. In Antigonish, up to $1.3 million could be cut.
Thank you. Very briefly. Yeah, very briefly.
Very briefly, I just want to say that, and I'm sure people might not know, maybe they do, but we passed legislation this spring that indicates that 1% reduction in the HST will be effective July 1st, 2014, and another 1% reduction in the HST will be effective July 1st, 2015. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think we'll go on to the next questioner. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, my name is Dexter John Unibay. I previously attempted to take my own life last year on this campus. What I've noticed as a young person during this entire election is the fact that youth mental health really hasn't been that much of an election issue, despite the fact that it is the second leading cause of death amongst young people like myself. So as a son to the three gentlemen that are sitting right there that want to be my representative along with young people, my question to you is this. What would you personally do to advocate, your party as well too, to help better the youth mental health infrastructure across campuses in the county and province as a whole? Because quite frankly, the current one-size-fits-all for the entire province solution, the current mental health strategy isn't really working on campuses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we'll go. We can just go this order. Mr. Delory.
Dexter. I don't even know how to respond to your preamble to the question, except to say that mental health issues, I think, affect us all, if not directly, very close to us. I can't tell you exactly what programs or how we can strengthen it, but we really need to. We need to do more. That's it. We need to do more.
Mental health is becoming more and more of an issue in every community, and Antigonish is no different. When we have a student population such as St. FX, there are a lot of pressures associated with going to university. There's costs, there's pressures to do well in school, you know, because you want to do well, you want to get through, and there's lots of pressures associated with that. So that population is no different than the overall population, but what we have to do as a society is recognize these issues, first of all. That's where the first step is about raising awareness, recognizing the issue, but at the same time, offering the appropriate services that are necessary. Now, we're talking about inpatient services as well as outpatient services. There are services available, formal services available at hospitals, but what happens when the person leaves the hospital? It's the outpatient services and support networks that really make the difference in someone's life. Because you can seek inpatient services for a specific amount of time, but what changes a person's life is that ongoing support in the community. Now, I can't promise exactly what I can do, but what I can do is advocate for people in the community with those needs and make sure that Antigonish supports people who need those services.
I have to apologize. I didn't hear any of the preamble. I know you were speaking, but for some reason I wasn't hearing you. And I guess all I can say around this mental health issue is we have a new strategy that's come out. It's the first strategy that's been issued by the province in a long time. If there are gaps in the strategy that you want to raise and tell us about, I'm quite prepared to bring those kinds of issues forward. If there's a need that isn't being met, then the right thing to do is to come forward with it. But I don't know how to address the issue until I'm told exactly what it is. If it's a general thing, then I think all I can rely on is that we have come out now with a mental health strategy that we're prepared to move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we call the next question, or?
If that's okay, if I can rebuttal.
Speak up then, yes.
All right, perfect. Can you all hear me now? All right. I'm talking to youth mental health services on campuses. There is a lack of infrastructure, at least from what I've even heard from my own students, fellow students, into actually receiving services that are necessary because they're so bogged down by the number of students that are available as opposed to the actual professionals.
I see.
And that's what I see the problem there, right there and then. There aren't enough services. It's not talked about, despite the fact that I actually have read the mental health strategy that is been
Okay,
put forward by this
thanks for
government.
clarifying that then. Is that okay? Yeah. Any further comments on that?
Well, again, I'm going to say that we have a strategy that should be available to everyone. If you're not finding something within the four corners of your campus, then you'll have to look to where the resources are. We have resources in the community. If they're not on campus and you need resources, then I'm sure you will be able to access them. Thank you.
Mr. Delory, yeah.
I guess one other thing with respect to the solutions, it's not just on campuses where resources for mental health are lacking, it's right across the board. And it's not just services that are lacking and the infrastructure to support mental health initiatives. It's also awareness and community involvement. And although, Mr. Smith suggests that if you're not finding the services on campus, then reach out somewhere else, the unfortunate reality is when people are suffering from mental illness conditions, they're not in a condition to reach out. And that's the major gap in our mental health strategies. So we need to work together and make a commitment, not just as a government, but as a community. As a community to become informed, to have the conversations, to recognize that it could be your brother.
All right, thanks. Any further? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Delory. Let's take the next question.
My name is Mary McCarran, and our family has a dairy farm in St. Andrews, Nova Scotia. My question to the three candidates today is the importance of the primary industries in the province of Nova Scotia. These industries have been the rural backbone of all of our rural communities. I'd like to know what each party's plans are to revitalize this industry We have the primary industries, forestry, fisheries, farming, and agriculture. If we revitalize these industries, it is an economic boom for the province of Nova Scotia. And I'd just like to know what the plans are for each of the parties.
Mr. Smith?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll speak to you, Mary, with reference to the farm issue, since that's your main, I guess, issue. Nova Scotia is the only province in the since 2009 who's actually had an increase in new farm starts. And we have two programs that we've just recently introduced. One is a program to assist young people who want to get into the farming industry. It gives them a tax credit on their loans that they borrow, up to $30,000 tax credit for a new farm purchase, and $20,000 for a farm that's already ongoing. The other program that we have is also geared at helping get farmers, new people in the industry, by encouraging them with helping with down payments on original purchases. Those are the kinds of things that we're moving forward with through our government. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Farms in the community are no different than any other small business in the community, because that's what they are. They are a small business. Making it easier for small businesses to survive is part of the overall plan of change that works. If you talk to any farmer, and I know quite a few of them within the community, they will often tell you that it's the high price of fuel, high price of feed, machinery costs keep going up, the cost of everything keeps rising. And that's one of the biggest obstacles for reinvesting in your farm and making it a better farm and more productive. The BC government is also looking at initiatives to make a priority for local food within government agencies, including hospitals, government buildings, and things of that nature. What we have to do is support our local industries, because if we don't support our local industries, then they can't afford to stay open, they can't survive, they can't be passed on to their son or daughter, and that's where we develop real food security issues, so we're not producing our own food. So it's one of those things where you make the conditions more palatable for the business to survive, and then the conditions themselves and the expertise of the farming industry will take it over from there. Thanks.
Mr. DeLorean?
One of the first things, again, I think we've all speaking because of the question coming from the farming background, speaking primarily towards farming, but we're going to work towards a 2020, the 20% of local food production in Nova Scotia by 2020. But in addition to that, we're going to work with industry stakeholders. We want to create a provincial agricultural land preservation plan, complemented with easement through an agricultural land trust to help ensure that we have the lands available for appropriate use to meet those food production needs. One of the challenges that has been brought to my attention by some people in the farming industry is the difficulty with continuing the farm. Smaller families, there's not as many family members that may be willing to take the family farm on, and yet it's cost prohibitive in many cases for an outsider to step in and get into the farming industry by taking over a local farm. The result of that in many cases is, in dairy for example, is selling the quota to a larger organization, which is to some degrees a disservice to the great farming tradition we have here in Antigonish. So we will work with the Liberal government, with the various stakeholders and farmers to create a strategic plan to help ensure that we can have new farmers entering into our industry here in Nova Scotia. With respect to the other primary industries, fishing and which we all know the challenges that industry has been having, we see it the last number of years. We make it through and yet we do nothing in between to the next season, in particular with lobster fishing situation. We need to start looking and working together with our stakeholders, not just when the season hits and the problems come up, we need to work proactively to come up with the solutions. And we do that by working together to come up with solutions. For forestry and fishing, we're looking at possibilities on how to increase value-added services to those products.
Thanks. Mr. Smith, yes?
Two things, I guess, in response to what Mr. Delory has just said. We're not waiting between seasons to get work done. As you all know, the lobster issue here was quite keen in terms of pricing and that issue this spring. The ministers of the 4 Atlantic provinces, as I understand it, have come together in a collaborative way, and have a panel now studying the ways to make improvements with lobster pricing and lobster sales. And I understand a report is due imminently from that group. I chuckled a little bit when Mr. Delory talked about the 20% by 2020. I congratulate him on taking a page out of our book. That's exactly a plan that we have put forward, and I welcome your support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Delory, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Smith. It is great that politicians can work together, and when there's a good idea out there on the table, that we're willing to work together to implement them.
Right.
That's
Hear, hear.
exactly how our political system is meant to work.
Okay, I regret this will have to be the last question. Sorry about the people standing behind there. You may have an opportunity to put your question directly to the candidates afterwards in an informal way, so go ahead.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, gentlemen. I think we all really appreciate having you come out. My name is Benjamin Stonier. I've been a resident here for over 10 years. My question to you regards what's going to happen when things go wrong if you are our representative in Halifax and if your party also makes the government. Basically, all of your platforms are based on rosy projections, be they for the effects of tax cuts, tax incentives, or working with the federal government, because who knows what's going to happen there in 2015. What's going to happen when you have to break a promise to the people of Antigonish? What's going to happen when your party, if it's in power, has to break a big promise to us, Nova Scotians, or you personally have to come here and say there's something that we couldn't do?
Thank you. Who wants to go first on that one?
I don't mind.
Mr. Delory.
Happy to answer that question. I should note that one of the biggest challenges that I had when I was considering putting my name forward after I'd been asked to do so was exactly that question. I'm a big proponent in really the essence of what our political system is, which is that your elected official is elected to represent the constituents. And so I struggled with that concept, is how do you, when there's a conflict between what your constituents want, what they think is in their best interest, and what the party wants. You know, at one point I was a big fan of the notion of getting rid of parties altogether and go back to just independence. But then you follow that thought process through and it doesn't take long before people jump back into parties to make agreements to get things done. So we do need the party structure, which means we have to be willing to compromise. We have to recognize that sometimes we locally will have to make trade-offs for the betterment of the entire province, and sometimes we'll have to trade off little things to get something bigger down the road for Antigonish. So that's something I hope you all recognize, that when you elect me, that is something that we'll have to make decisions on. But your question was specifically about the big things, I think. When it comes to the big things, and I talked to a lot of politicians about this, and they've all different party stripes before I put my name forward, and they all said basically the same thing. There's a line. The line's different for every individual. I'm coming into this as a resident of Antigonish first and foremost. So when it comes to the big things, you know where I'm going to land, and it's going to be on the side of the community and the people of Antigonish.
Who's next? Mr. Thompson?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Politicians don't have the best reputation when it comes to promises. That's what I've heard. That's why when I go around and I talk to people, people ask me questions, what can you do for me? What can you do for Antigonish? And I am very, very careful not to make a promise that I can't keep. Now, I can reiterate platform items, issues that come up, and so on, but what I can promise is that I will speak up for Antigonish first. Now, what that means to me is why I get into this business in the first place. When we talk in the provincial level, you have an obligation to your party as part of a party, but Jamie Bailey, our PC leader, has said to us, do not forget, the number one priority you have is to the role of your constituents. Now, nobody has a crystal ball. We all look at how we're going to run this province and how we can go effectively into the future. Up to this point, it's been very difficult because we're doing the same things over and over and over again. Jamie Bailey has lots of good ideas. It's all listed out. We need to radically change how we do business in this province. And if we set the appropriate conditions right, then we will become a province people want to go to. People want to stay and live, work, play. We know how great it is here. That's why we live here. But we got to get that word out, make it more affordable, and let people come to Antigonish and see for themselves. Thank you.
I guess I want to address the premise of the question a little bit first. The suggestion was that what we're giving is rosy projections, and I just want to say that what we're telling you that we're going to do is based on a review of the budget, which is balanced. And that budget was reviewed by the Auditor General, and he gave an unqualified opinion as to the costing and the proposed incomes and the proposed expenses. And that's the first time in a very long time that we've had that kind of a report from the Auditor General. So what we're saying we're going to do is based on the fact that we believe we have the resources to do it. You know, an earthquake, a hurricane, whatever, can cause things to go off the rails. If we're in a situation where we have to come back and say to someone, look, we were going to do this and we couldn't do it for this reason, I don't have any difficulty in being honest with people and telling them what's happened. But we are in a good position now in Nova Scotia. We have a balanced budget. Our credit rating is the best it's ever been in its history. And the things that we're proposing to go forward with are things that I believe we can achieve. I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't believe that. And we have achieved a lot in our community. You know, just in the 4 years we've been here, if you look at the resources that we've been able to bring to Antigonish, look at the People's Place Library. It's the flagship of libraries in Nova Scotia. We have the recent investment in the rowing club at Loch Harbour. A huge amount of government money has gone into that. We have the turf field at the school, the canal bridge, the expansion of the phase 2 of the highway with the twinning of the highway. We have the new addition to the R.K. McDonald Nursing Home. We have the 2 new large houses on the top of Hawthorne Street. We have the new beds just announced for Bethany. We're getting the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now we're in the last phase of the program here, where we're going to ask the candidates to make their closing remarks, 3 minutes each, and we are going in the reverse order of the opening remarks. So that will mean Mr. Thompson, followed by Mr. Delory, followed by Mr. Smith, and there will be no rebuttal. So this is your last chance. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yes.
Stay here.
Yeah. You can stay here, you come here if you wish.
I'm okay.
I'll stay here.
All right.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. It shows how much we all care about Antigonish and the community to come out here and see what we have to say, but our parties have to say. And it just reiterates what a great place this is. Any one of us who's lucky enough to become your representative is going to have a wonderful job in their hands, but there's also going to be challenges. I know myself, I feel that I'm a person that's been heavily involved in the community. I do feel like I'm up to the challenge. I've demonstrated that through many different organizations that I've been with, but I've also been very, very impressed by the ideas of our leader, Jamie Bailey. He is the leader that's probably most qualified to be our premier. The Premier is the person that has to run the show. And we need someone with his background, his experience. He's been the president and CEO of Credit Union Atlantic, recognized 5 years running as a CEO of the Year for Atlantic Canada, and he's a fellow charter accountant. What better guy to run our province? As people see him travel the province, he's been in Antigonish several times, everybody is impressed by his ideas, his plan, and his vision. So I feel I'm fortunate to be in that team, and I look forward to implementing those ideas when he becomes the next Premier. I've heard from people at the door, we need help. And after 4 years of the NDP government, everybody is telling me we need a change. That would mark the first time an incumbent government would be changed after one mandate. That is a telling response to how people think about the present government. We need solutions for today's problems that affect families. And the PC Party is the only party that offers change that works. We need to change our idea on how we think, how we run things. We need a change in direction to really turn this province around. I will pledge to you that if elected as your MLA, I will do everything I can to advocate for this community, to protect the way of life we have here in Antigonish. But it seems that it's been a challenge over the last 4 years because everybody I've spoken to has spoken about those challenges. The increased taxes, the broken promises of deficit budgets, high soaring power rates, just making life unaffordable for Nova Scotians. So I hope that I get the chance to represent you in Antigonish, and I respectfully ask for your support on October 8th. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the Chamber, Pat, to St. Evac, to the Students' Union for hosting and pulling this event together. Thank you to all of you for coming out. But I hope that when it comes to Election Day, you bring a friend too. We've had only 53% of Antigonish eligible voters went out and cast a vote in the 2009 October by-election. I hope those of you that are here agree with me that that is a dismal statement on the level of engagement in the political process. If you want the right representative to represent you and your families in Halifax, then we need to make sure that we get more than 1 and 2 people out there voting, so we know that we're representing all of the people and all of the interests, because we need to get informed and engaged. So please, 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 I encourage you all, this is a nonpartisan plea, to get out there and vote and bring some friends with you as well. I've told you in the introduction why I think I'm a great candidate, why I think I'm the most qualified and the best candidate to represent you. I agree with Mr. Thompson that it is time for a change, and the change is simply put as putting Nova Scotia first. I personify that myself because that's the Liberal Party platform across Nova Scotia, but what that means to me is putting people before politics. I mentioned it in the opening statement that all of the governmental decisions that the provincial government is responsible for, education, health care, road infrastructure, and so on, all of those decisions that we've talked about tonight, they all mean nothing, absolutely nothing, if they do not put the people first. If we don't make the policies, if we don't implement the solutions that are designed to put the people first, then we're not going to have strong communities and we're not going to have a strong Nova Scotia. The Liberal platform and the team behind Stephen McNeil, myself included, we are the people who put Nova Scotia first. We are the people, the team, who are going to come together with the policies that are built through consultation. And I can attest to the fact that the Liberal platform is built through consultation because I was not a member of the Liberal Party in 2010 when they first reached out to me for my work in the Community Schools Initiative to join them in Halifax to help craft an education policy. I was not a member of any political party at that time. So they truly reached out. They never asked me my political affiliations. They never asked me how I voted in the past. They reached out to me as a member of the community. And my work with them on the education platform and many others within the party and from communities, that's how that was developed. And the same was done for other aspects of the platform. So they are truly committed to consultation. And I believe that our plan is the best, and I am the best candidate for Antigonish. Thank you.
Before I sort of say my final words, I would like to support Mr. Delorey's position that voting is very important, that traditionally our vote here in Antigonish has been declining, and that worries me. Because I think it's a sacred duty we have, and it's important for people to get out. And I guess just on that message, if I may, you can vote before October the 8th. Up until October the 2nd, you can vote any day of the week, Monday to Saturday included. The only day you can't vote is Sunday. You can vote at the returning office at the mall. The returning office is in the old Easy Home space near Lawton's drugstore. Go there and vote, and do it as quickly as you can, because it's as I said, I consider it a sacred duty, and we now none of us have any reason not to vote in terms of having missed a day or the advanced polls. I want to thank the sponsors as well for having us here this evening. I believe it was the Casket and the local radio station and the Hawk that have sponsored us this evening. And I also am thankful for the Student Union and the Chamber for setting this up. And of course, thank you all for coming. I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to convey to you the NDP's positions on these important questions. And you as the electorate have a choice to make. You can move the province forward with giving my party a second mandate to continue on with the projects and plans that it has initiated. When you look at the achievement reached during such difficult circumstances and without sacrificing programs or slashing services, you can see how effective an NDP government can be. I'm proud to be a part of this government. We've governed this province for only 4 years. Collectively, the old parties held the reins for nearly 250 years. It would be unreasonable to think that everything can be righted in just one term in office. We need to keep the momentum going forward and not turn back to the past methods of job losses, program cuts, and service losses that have been the hallmark of both the Liberals and Conservatives. I ask for your support in this election. Thank you.
And I'll bring this now to a close. I thank you for your attention. I feel very privileged to have been asked to do this, and I feel I found, learned a great deal about the issues, and I thought that the candidates were very forthcoming in their remarks. It's been a wonderful audience, very attentive and respectful. Thank to you for your questions. So we've had a great turnout. Thanks the Chamber of Commerce and Student Union for organizing the event, and of course one echoes the comments that the candidates made about getting out to vote, and I wanted to commend the 3 excellent candidates we have. It is a very, very difficult job to do in politics, to run for office, even more so to actually to get down there in Province House and act on behalf. And so we wish you all the best of luck in the next few days, and we'll wait with great interest to see how it all works out on October 8th. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming.